an important film. It does leave an impact on its viewer. Actually, I wish I had. Yeah, sorry. Do you hear me now better? Okay, cool. So I wish we had hours to talk, but we only have 20 minutes, so I'm just going to jump right in. My first question is, why this topic, and when did this idea first come to you?
Yeah, this all started 6 years ago. When we toured with our previous film, The Cleaners, we discovered a web page which stated, "Become virtually immortal." And first we thought it's just a cheap scam of someone, and we digged deeper and we found out that there's an MIT fellow behind that page, and that he has the idea to use all the private data we are leaving behind every day on our smartphones and laptops. And he wanted to create a digital doppelganger which lives on after we pass. And we met him, and he told us it's like Skyping with dead people. And we found it weird and shocking in a way, and at the same time it was so interesting on many levels, on an ethical level, on a psychological level, so that we started to continue researching about that. And we are super interested in discovering digital topics and to create a very concrete cinematic experience. So, because when we're talking about AI, it's super abstract, it's super complicated, and we try to translate it into something concrete. And then we thought that's a good topic to do that.
And you did the storytelling through human stories, not just showing us the companies. I was wondering, how did you choose these particular people to be presented in the film?
Yeah, that's a good question, because we spoke with many more people not featured in that film. We first started contacting the startup founders, because when we first started they didn't have any users, they had just the idea, they didn't have any product back in the days, because the technology wasn't that far developed back then. And after a while we had the chance to meet the first users of these services, and there was a time when we spoke with hundreds of users, and to get the idea why do they do that? Why do they use these services? And then we very shortly found, for example, Christy. There was such an impressive moment when we first talked to her. She was so emotional, she was so transparent, and she was touching in a way. And we knew she's a very interesting character for the film, for example. So it took a while. I mean, we worked 6 years on the film, but after a while we knew we have like the right ensemble for the film.
And you capture a lot of emotions. Christy, for example, who you mentioned. How did you make these people feel comfortable in front of the camera?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, it's more like the relationship to someone. You need to really build a relationship of trust. You need to spend time with them before you start shooting. You need to stay very curious and honestly, and you also need to share about your own experience in dealing with death, for example, and to be on the same level so that they trust you. But of course, that was one challenge for the film, because most of the protagonists, they suffered a very tragic loss in a way, and to be sensitive and to be honest to each other, and to make sure that they feel comfortable in sharing the story. And that was very important for us, that we also include them in the editing process as well. And we also were confronted with a lot of ethical questions ourselves as filmmakers, because, for example, we thought a lot about what kinds of texts we could include from the chat protocols, because we didn't have the chance to, for example, ask Cameron if he likes to be presented in the film as a simulation. With some of the users, we managed to talk to the family members, and we asked the mother, and we asked the sister, for example, of Jessica, the deceased girlfriend of Joshua. But with Cameron, it was impossible. And at the end, we decided not to include any biographical details, for example, to like save his personal rights in a way, not to disturb that in a way. So that was interesting for us as well. how to manage to do a film about that topic in an ethical way.
Were there any stories that particularly touched you?
During the process?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, one story comes up into my mind which is not featured in the film, which is a young man. We met him in New York a couple of years ago, and he got a terminal disease, and the doctors told him he has just a few more months to live. And he was creating a digital avatar because he felt more comfortable in leaving something behind for his father. He has a very intimate relationship with his father. And we started shooting, and it was very intense for us because the disease was like he was losing he couldn't speak anymore and he couldn't walk anymore, and it was like really, it was getting worse and worse every week. And at the same time, the digital avatar which was created was getting better and better and better at the same time. And that was a very awkward situation, that the digital avatar was even more, it was better into interacting with the father than he was. And shortly before the moment came when he was supposed to die, he had like the last chance, one experimental therapy in the US. And he did that, and it worked. Like he was stable, and he was even getting better and better. And that was good for him, and we were super happy that it worked out. But then it turned out that he told us he do not want to be in the film anymore because he was reminded of these bad days, and he didn't want to finish the avatar. And of course, we accepted that. But that's sometimes the case in documentary filmmaking. You work with him like months and months, and at the end, it's not in the film anymore.
Okay, I think I can pass the microphone on to the audience. So please just, yeah. I think we start here. Or do we have an extra?
We have an extra one.
Perfect. No, I don't even have to jump. Cool.
Thanks so much. I thought that was a fantastic film in terms of capturing really difficult things and ethical dilemmas and the positive and the negative. But something I kept thinking throughout the film, as someone who believes totally in life after death, I've had many experiences that I would say that I feel people after they die. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think there are many people in the world. And that there is already a lot of communication going on between people, particularly perhaps in non-Western societies and their past relatives. Then you could say, oh, it's in your head or this or that. I was interested in, this is a whole new arena with like money making and all this like dark side of this, like exploiting that wish to communicate with the dead. But what do you think about the fact that so many people do experience life after death in terms of their relatives, and where does that fit in with people sort of wanting to recreate someone who's died, as opposed to people who feel they really are actually in touch with someone who's died? And I wonder what your personal beliefs are about life after death. You might not want to talk about that as someone who's just delved so deep. But I think it was fantastically thought-provoking film.
Yeah, I think there was one big experience while researching, is that we found out and also studied claim that more and more people do not believe in religions anymore, and they do not believe in afterlife with God, and they do not believe to be in hell or to be in a very blue Disney-like cloud after they pass away. And at the same time, there are also studies that claim that we cannot live with the fact that there's nothing after we pass. And that's so interesting, because there's a big longing in a new narrative, maybe in a secular story of salvation in a way, that these tech companies, they filling the gap, that more and more people, they want to have a new narrative in how to deal with death, or how to deal with grief in a way. And that's why I think this business has a big potential, because we as Western societies, we have like a big problem because there's no new offer in how to deal with death. And that's a big problem. That's a big cultural problem, I would say. And I'm not very happy about the new offers, but I can totally understand that there are many people out there longing for these kinds of services. And who am I to judge them? I think I really understand that, for example, there's a mother want to have a last conversation with her kid in a way. But of course, I see the downside, and I see that that's very problematic on many levels to do that, and to make money out of that. That's super exploitive, and to make sure that we all understand that it's a very specific group of people using these services. That's a vulnerable group of people. They suffered a very tragic loss, and that makes it even more complicated and dangerous for them as well. And of course, you're totally right. To speak with deaf people, it's in other cultural contexts very normal. That's just us as the Central European people who are thinking that's super scary to do that. No, it's for different cultures, it's very normal to do that. And I think when we look at the numbers, the numbers of investment in tech, we can see that the field of effective computing, which means to build machines that are capable of pretend to have empathy or to detect emotions, that's the biggest investment field in the tech industry nowadays. So in future we will have the situation that we talk to artificial entities and we cannot distinguish if that's a human or if that's an artificial intelligence. So there's something coming up in the future and we need to prepare.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I saw your hand first. So thank you. Just second row.